Okay, everybody, welcome to the rerun of the 2020 US presidential election. Now, this was a fantastic campaign, and I think it deserved the merit of having the famous Natalie Lindo come into the studio and do a voiceover. However, Natalie was too busy stuffing her face with ice cream and getting drunk on cosmopolitans and margarita cocktails. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do the voiceover. So let's crack on. As you can see, over 200 years ago in 1792, the first original 13 states of the USA were a lovely blue, rest of the world Democrat blue, run by the lovely rest of the world people, providing a perfect land of milk and honey for all American citizens. However, what happened then was the bloody Irish turned up, sticking their filthy fingers into the American pie and saying, hang on, we want some of this. So what did they decide to do? They tried to redraw the map of America, and this is what they did. Now come on, as you can see, that's childish. Come on, Ireland, you can't have that in a country the size of and importance of America. So we decided to do the right thing, and we decided to have a proper democratic electoral election. So we went from this somehow to this, a massive red horrible swathe of Irish filth. Now I hear you ask, how did that happen? Surely you carried out the proper democratic election and everything was fine, so how could it suddenly go from rest of the world blue to horrible Ireland red? Well, apparently there was a lot of allegations, probably justified, that the vote may have been fixed, rigged or whatever. So we need to look properly into the voting system after the election and to see if that bears any truth. So let's have a look at exactly what happened. Okay, as you can see, we have all the results here clearly marked, and as you can see, after the first 7 states up to and including New Jersey, it was very, very close. Ireland, the Republicans, had won 4 states, and the rest of the world, the Democrats, had won 3, giving a running total after 7 states, very close, Ireland on 6 electoral votes and the rest of the world on 5. However, as you can see, after that, the next few states, it was an absolute red whitewash. All the votes came in for the Republicans, very, very dodgy, and apparently, again, allegations, unsubstantiated at the moment, but apparently there were lots of very dubious votes coming in for Rosie, Jill and Kim from their very, very dubious YouTube accounts, Snapchat accounts and TikTok accounts. So I think we need to look closely into that and to see if they had any bearing on the result. Okay, you can see as well in the voting themselves. And first of all, I'd like to point out, in fairness to Ryan, who got lambasted during the game, that he didn't get any votes at all until round 7. He actually did score 2 votes in the very first round, leaving only Matthew All-Baron by himself with only 1 round of scoring 3 points. So in the grand total, you can see Matthew is at the bottom, the hardcore high roller stakes gambler, only on 3 points or 3 electoral votes, and Ryan on 6, all the way up to Kim of Ireland, who had a fantastic voting evening, scoring votes in virtually every single round, including 2 7s to give her a total of 24. And the highest number of votes going to Wilma of the Democrats, rest of the world, securing 1 round of 8 votes. Very, very popular state for Wilma there. Well done, Wilma. And as you can see, that just clarifies that voting structure there. Wilma the top on 8 and Matthew all the way down on 3, along with Ryan, Jill and Chris. Now, let's look at the votes in a bit more detail. Let's look at the cards first of all. Here you can see from the very, very first vote, which is the 2, or the very first card produced, which is the 2, all the way to the end. Now I say the end, this 5 here in black denotes a little run I had as an independent official adjudicator. After the allegations of match rigging, vote rigging, I thought I'll have a go. So after the very last card which was drawn in the voting, which is a jack, I went lower than a jack, got a 5, went higher than a 5, got a jack, lower than a jack, got a 9, higher than a 9, got a queen, and then got shafted with an ace as I went lower than a queen. So I had a run of 4 before I got killed. And with the ace coming out, I thought, yes, maybe there is some vote rigging going on. But anyway, back to the cards. So the first card that came out, as an example, was a 2. I then drew another card, which was another 2. So I think straight away, if you look at that, a double followed by an 8, followed by another double, I think that would have given us some idea of exactly where the voting was going to end up this evening, i.e. in the pan. So let's look again into more detail. You can see in green, now all the doubles that came out through the evening, so for example 2 5s, 2 2s, 3 9s, wow, look at that, 3 9s. So they're more or less pretty much spread out quite evenly, so I don't think any problems there. Then you've got all the aces highlighted in yellow, drawn out through the evening, but I think you can probably see already towards the end of the game, the final third, there were a lot more aces drawn out, and particularly here you'll notice 3 double aces, an ace following an ace, which is, as you can see, is impossible to beat. Now that happened 3 times, and incidentally, or coincidentally, whichever way you look at it, happened to the rest of the world only. The Republicans never had the beautiful effect of having an ace following an ace. That only ever happened to the rest of the world, so very dodgy. Now moving on from this, we'll look at the totals for each particular card drawn. Now here, there were 423 votes cast across the evening, and I've done them all in this little block here, and I've broken them down into lines of 25. So the first 25 votes are this line, like this, then the next 25 votes, but obviously ranked in order from the lowest card to the highest card to give us some idea of how many times each card came out, which is borne out here. So 2 came out 36 times, 3 came out 23, and so on. And if you rank them in order, you can see that the ace, which I think most people came out, or most people thought came out far too often, was on 41 times, the same as a 9, only 3 behind the 4. So more or less, the ace was virtually the highest drawn card of the evening. And the lowest drawn card of the evening was the 5. Only 22 times did we see his little red face. Okay, now let's have a look. Back to the numbers. Now you can see I've highlighted all the aces in yellow, so they stand out nicely. And one thing you'll see straight away, that in the first 2/3 of the game, there weren't that many aces coming out, particularly in the first third. In the first third of the votes, 175 votes, only 7 aces came out of the 41 in total. So after the first 175 votes, only 22% of the aces were drawn out. Now if you notice in the final third, well first of all let's do after the first 300 votes, it took 300 votes for 51% of the aces to turn up, which is fairly average, I think, a decent sort of spread. But then in the final 5 blocks, which is basically 123 votes, 300 to 423, 20 aces came out. Look at all those aces. No wonder it was difficult in the final part of the game to get anything correct. That's a massive difference. So basically 50% of the aces came out in the final 123 votes. Shocking. Also you can see as well, highlighted in the sort of reddy sort of colour, or orangey red, is the picture cards, jacks to kings. So you can see where all the lower cards are and where all the higher cards are. And again you can see, I think, if you go from here, you can see how much more or how many higher cards there are compared to early on in the game. Again, making it very difficult. And in the final round of 23 cards, there was only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times did a number come out lower than a 9. All the rest of the cards were a 9 or higher, again making it virtually impossible to try and get it right. Because most times you would say go lower than a queen or lower than a king or lower than a 10, and high cards kept coming out. Whoa, what a finish. So yeah, so to confirm, 41 aces came out, the majority of which came out towards the very end of the game. Now then, moving on to the votes. Now you've heard of the term hustings in political arenas. Now we're going to move on to the shaftings in political arenas. This is the votes, and this is how many times both the Republicans in red and the Democrats in blue got shafted by cards where you would think percentage wise they should have won and they ended up losing. For example, here, let's pick one. The rest of the world had a king, so they went lower than the king, but an ace came out, so they got shafted. Here, let's say for example the Republicans had a 10, so naturally you would go lower than the 10, and the King came out, so we think they got shafted. So in the first half of the voting, as you can see it, split into half, the Republicans got shafted 19 times, and the rest of the world, the Democrats, got shafted 24 times, giving 43 shaftings in the first half. Now, in the second half, the Republicans got shafted 22 times, a slight increase, and the rest of the world got shafted 32 times. And you can see there was far more shaftings in the second half than there was in the first half. And you can see the two totals here. The rest of the world got shafted 15 times more than the Republicans. That says a lot. No wonder the Republicans ran away with the votes towards the end of the game. Now, one final thing to do is who was severely shafted. Not just shafted, but severely shafted. And I think if you can see here now, these are the ones, the times where you basically have no chance whatsoever of getting the guess right. So for example, the Republicans, I think, got severely shafted 6 times. So 3 times they had a king, followed by an ace, virtually impossible to win. And then you have, they had a 3, they got another 3. They had a 3, would have gone higher, got a 2, got a 2, would have gone higher, got another 2. But look at the rest of the world. The Republicans only had a king ace 3 times, the rest of the world 5 times they had a king followed by an ace, and more importantly and more disgustingly, they had an ace followed by an ace 3 times, which never ever happened to the Irish Republic. So that makes a massive difference to the game. So looking on these, based on these figures and the way it's been reported, I think I can confidently say that the rest of the world, the Democrats, were absolutely shafted in the voting, and that the Irish rode their luck. And I'm pretty sure that next time we have the same kind of election, I think the rest of the world should and will win. Thank you for listening, and good night.
He's got it. He's got it.
Yes!
This is bullshit.
Here we go then.